Welcome back. It's time for another story. Part 2 of the Twisty Saga. Carnival of Terrors. Twisty's Fate. Chapter 1. It's been 15 years since the Carnival of Terrors wreaked havoc on the town of Ravenclaw. The carnival doors were closed shut. The 3 children who went missing were never found. The floor was scattered with pictures of the 3 missing children, Amy, Aiden, and Jackson. The town was scared to ever allow another carnival in their town. People still swore they could hear laughter drifting across the empty lot at night. Not children's laughter, but something sinister, something horribly wrong, something stretched and hollow. Some say Twisty never left. They say he stays waiting for more fearless kids to bring his carnival to life. Chapter 2. No one ever dared go near that empty lot, and the town didn't allow its children out at night, fearing that they might get curious and enter the abandoned carnival. And for years, no one did. That was until Raven came along. She was the sister of Aiden, one of the kids who disappeared. Unlike Aiden, she was terrified of everything, even her own shadow. She was just a baby when Aiden died. She is now 15 years old, and it's her birthday. The only wish she has is to avenge her brother. But how she knew her? She grew up hearing stories about Twisty and how he took away her only sibling and his friends. Every kid in town knew about him, the clown with the twisted face who never spoke. Chapter 3. As the day ended and Raven began to open her gifts, she came across an old antique box addressed to her from her grandmother. Confused and excited at the same time, she looked at her parents, asking, how was this possible to receive a gift from her grandmother if she died 2 years ago? Her mother then pulled out an old envelope addressed to Raven. Read it, she said, and you'll get your answers. With shaky hands, she slowly began to open the envelope, carefully not wanting to rip it. Pulling out the letter, she began to read, envisioning the sound of her grandmother's voice as she read. My dearest Raven, if you're reading this, then it means I am no longer here, but I leave with you our family legacy. Enclosed in this box is an ancient family heirloom, passed down through generations to the women in the family. Your mom refused the gift when you were born to avoid putting you in danger. You too have a choice to accept or reject your destiny. This heirloom has the power to vanquish great evil, should the time ever arise. I know in my heart you will choose what's right. With love always, your grandmother. P.S. If you choose to accept this, you must recite the words on the box to awaken the amulet. Chapter 4. Raven stood there, not knowing how to process what she had just read. She stared at the box in her hands, contemplating if she wanted to take on this ancient power. Taking the box and letter, she went up to her room and decided she would sleep and decide in the morning. That night, she dreamt she was at the carnival. She knew it was a dream, but she couldn't wake up. She heard echoes and screams all around. One voice in particular sounded familiar. She followed the voice until she stopped in front of a haunted house of mirrors. Being here, even if her dream scared her, because her brother Aiden disappeared at the haunted house of mirrors. The voice was stronger here. Terrified to go in, she turned and walked away. But just as she was about to take a step, a hand suddenly reached out to her. Slowly turning around, she couldn't believe it, because standing behind her was her brother Aiden. Help me, Raven, his voice echoed. Thinking this was really her brother, she reached out to hug him, but he disappeared into a cloud of dust. Instead, there stood Twisty. Unable to speak, frozen in fear, Raven closed her eyes and imagined herself safe and sound back in her bedroom. When she woke up, she was on the floor, screaming, terrified, shaking, and clutching her grandma's amulet. Chapter 5. Raven quickly got back to bed, holding the amulet close to her chest. Remembering what her grandmother said about awakening the amulet, she grabbed the box and quickly found the incantation. She stared at the box for a couple minutes, then made up her mind. She decided she would accept her destiny. Twisty was evil, and it was up to her to vanquish him. And set the town free of his curse. Taking a deep breath, she started to say the words out loud. Heart of light, by truth made whole, shield the bearer, guard the soul, break the seal, let power flow, by ancient will, that amulet glow. At first it seemed as if nothing had happened, but then suddenly the amulet began to glow in her hand. Raven immediately felt calm, drifting off to a dreamless sleep. Chapter 6. When Raven woke up, she somehow felt different. She felt as if she now had a purpose. She decided that despite her fear, she'd go to the abandoned carnival, vanquish Twisty, and free the lost souls. The following night, when everyone had gone to bed, Raven set out on her journey. Standing in front of the rusted gates, she pushed on them, and suddenly, the rusted gates groaned as if coming to life. Raven pushed them apart. Despite all the stories she heard, she took a deep breath and walked into the carnival. After all, she wasn't here for stories. She came for answers. All around her, she heard echoes and cries that didn't echo right. Every reflection showing things that weren't there. But she wasn't scared, because around her neck hung her grandmother's amulet, a dull silver amulet, etched with symbols too old to read. Holding the amulet in her hand, she heard a soft but faint voice saying, "If the voices ever call you, this amulet will keep you safe." Last night they had called, and Raven knew what she was meant to do. Chapter 7. Inside the carnival, it was frozen in decay. The Ferris wheel creaked slowly, though there was no wind. Ticket booths stood empty, their glass smeared from the inside. Faded signs flickered with dying electricity, somehow still alive after all these years. And then suddenly Raven heard a crackle, a humming. The loudspeakers sputtered to life. For a moment, there was only static. Then a voice. "You okay?" Raven froze. It wasn't loud. It was barely clear enough, but it sounded inhuman, evil, distorted. Her grip tightened around her amulet. It warmed slightly against her skin. "You're Twisty," she said, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "You finally found a way to speak," said Raven. Static filled the air once more. Then laughter burst. It wasn't playful. It was evil, dark, and twisted. "No more silence," blared those loudspeakers. Chapter 8. Lights suddenly began to flicker. Across the carnival, one by one, the doors of the haunted house and mirrors burst open. The carousel began to turn, and the reflections twisted and stretched, but Raven remained perfectly normal. The amulet glowed faintly. From the speakers hidden within the walls, Twisty's voice slithered through. Once again, clearer this time. "They all screamed. Images flickered in the mirrors, not reflections, but memories. Children running, shadows bending, faces trapped behind glass, pounding, screaming, unable to escape. But Raven didn't look away. "You're not a ghost," she said. "You're something worse." The light began to dim. "They stay." The mirrors began to crack. Something moved quickly behind her. Raven turned slowly. At the end of the hall stood Twisty, but not the clown from the stories. This Twisty was twisted in a way that wasn't human. His body flickered like a broken signal, his grin abnormally stretched, too wide, his eyes black, voids bleeding with static. And when he tilted his head, the speakers screamed, "Finally!" Raven lifted the amulet. It blazed with light. For the first time, Twisty froze. Chapter 9. The speakers crackled violently. "No!" The mirrors shattered, but the shards froze in midair. Trembling, unable to touch her, Raven stepped forward, clutched her amulet, and began to recite spells unknown to her. "Break the seal that binds it here, embered soul and sacred breath. I summon judgment, burn the shadow, pierce the skies, lift the veil, lift the curse, from dust you came, to void you return. By this decree, forever burn, I cast you out in the name of light." The amulet pulsed, sending a wave of light all around Twisty. "Stay!" he shouted angrily. "No," said Raven. "You trapped the mirror," she said, "but you cannot trap me." "Don't leave!" he shouted, sounding angrier. Raven hesitated for a second. Then all of a sudden, the shadow surged in, reaching for her, grasping, desperate. Raven clutched the amulet. "I'm ending this," she said. She thrust it forward, and an even brighter light exploded. The speaker shrieked as Twisty's voice fractured into 1,000 pieces. "No!" The mirrors collapsed. The walls fell apart. The carnival suddenly seemed to scream. As the darkness lifted, ripped free, light pouring out of Raven's hands, Twisty reached out to grab her, but his skin began to burn, rapidly catching fire until he was nothing but a pile of dust. Then there was silence. The light from her hands faded, and then the carnival was gone. No rides, no mirrors, no speakers, just an empty field beneath the quiet, dark sky. Raven stood alone, embracing the silence, until she heard her faint voice. Turning around, she seen her brother Aiden. "Thank you," he said. "Don't forget me." And as the last bit of light in the amulet dimmed, he was gone. Him and all the trapped souls were finally free. In the distance, Raven heard the faint sounds of sirens wailing. "They'll never understand," she whispered, and walked away. But not before she heard Twisty's sinister laughter echoing in the sky. "One day you'll be gone for good," she said. "But for now, your days of terror are over." Then slowly she walked away. Some say the Carnival of Terror is finally gone, thanks to a brave girl named Raven. Some say he's just waiting for the chance to return. But one thing is certain: Twisty's silence is broken forever. The end.